She banged on my gate like she owned the place. "Open up, sheriff's orders," she yelled. I was still holding a paintbrush, staring at the freshly restored porch of my 100-year-old mansion. The house had taken me a year to bring back to life, and now this woman in a cheap blazer was waving papers like she was the law itself. Behind her, a deputy stood awkwardly, clearly unsure why he was even there. "Sir, are you aware you owe $72,000 in HOA dues?" she said, her tone dripping with fake authority. "HOA?" I frowned. "There isn't even an HOA in this area," she smirked. "There is now, and you're standing on its property." I laughed, thinking it was a prank, until she pointed at my porch. "If payment isn't made by the end of the week, this structure will be demolished as per HOA enforcement policy." The deputy hesitated. "Ma'am, we might need actual documentation before— Stay quiet, officer," she snapped. "This man's been avoiding fees for decades. We have records from 1974. That's when I froze. 1974. My grandfather had bought this land back then, long before any homeowners association existed here. Something wasn't adding up. "Show me those records," I said. She shoved a file in my face. Old papers, coffee stains, and fake stamps that didn't even match the county seal. She didn't expect me to notice, but I did. "You forged these," I said quietly. Her smile faltered for half a second. "You have until Friday," she hissed, turning to leave. I watched her car roll down the driveway, dust trailing behind her shiny SUV. The deputy gave me a small nod, like he knew something was off. As soon as they were gone, I walked to the porch steps, kicked the dirt, and found the old brass plate embedded in the foundation, a plate engraved with my family name and the date 1924. The land was ours long before her so-called HOA even existed. Something told me this wasn't about money. This was about power, and I wasn't going to bow to anyone pretending to own what generations of my family had built. Because if she wanted a fight, she was about to get one. 2 days later, I was repainting the mansion's front door when I heard engines outside. 3 black trucks lined up by my fence. Karen stepped out first, sunglasses on, hair pulled tight like she was going into battle. Behind her, a few men in orange vests carried crowbars and power tools. I walked down the steps slowly. "Can I help you?" She lifted a clipboard like it was a badge. "Demolition notice. You didn't pay the HOA balance, so we're reclaiming the property." The men behind her started moving toward the fence. One revved up a saw. "Stop," I said, voice steady. "You don't have any legal right to touch this house." Karen smiled that tight fake smile. "You think you're special? Everyone pays their dues. This mansion's been under HOA oversight for 50 years. I folded my arms. "Then show me one signature from my family agreeing to that." She waved the papers. "Already handled. You're trespassing on HOA-managed land now." Her words hit like a punch, but the way the workers hesitated told me something else. They weren't sure she was telling the truth either. Then one of them muttered, "Ma'am, this doesn't look like an official job. No county permit on file." Karen turned on him fast. "You're paid to do what I say." That's when I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Go ahead," I said. "Tell me again how you're going to destroy my property without a permit." Her face drained of color. "You can't record me." "Oh, I can," I said. "Because this is my land, and I have every right to protect it." The workers froze. One of them shut off his saw. Karen looked around, realizing she was losing control of the moment. "You'll regret this," she hissed, storming back toward her SUV. I watched her tires spin gravel as she sped off down the road. The men stayed quiet, then one turned to me. "Sir, you might want to watch your back. That woman's been trying to take over properties all over this area." I nodded slowly. She picked the wrong one this time. But as they left, I caught sight of something in the dirt where Karen's car had been, an official county envelope. I picked it up. Inside was a letter, signed by someone from the sheriff's office. Except the signature wasn't the real sheriff's, and I knew that because the sheriff was my old friend from the Marines. Whatever game Karen was playing, it just got a whole lot bigger. The next morning, I drove straight to the county sheriff's office, that envelope still sitting on my dashboard. The building was small, old, just like everything else in this quiet lakeside town. Sheriff Daniels was behind his desk sipping coffee, same as he used to during deployments. When he saw me walk in, his face lit up. "Well, I'll be damned. Haven't seen you since Afghanistan. What brings you in?" I dropped the envelope in front of him. This, supposedly from your office. He opened it, scanned the letter, then frowned hard. That's not my signature. And this seal. Hell, this isn't even the right format. I leaned against the desk. Some lady named Karen showed up at my house with a fake HOA and a fake sheriff order. She said I owe dues from 1974. Daniels rubbed his temple. You're kidding me. You know how many complaints we've had about her? She's been pushing people off their land. Claims her HOA covers half the county. Every time we investigate, paperwork disappears before we can pin her down. So she's running a scam? I asked. More like a network, he said quietly. Developers, fake records, even someone inside the clerk's office helping her. I stared at the letter again. My stomach tightened. She said if I didn't pay by Friday, she'd destroy my house. Daniel stood. She's bluffing, but if she's this desperate, she might do something stupid. You got security cameras? Inside, outside, and drone footage, I said. He smirked. Good, let her hang herself. Then his tone changed. Serious, protective. Look, I know you. You don't scare easy. But be careful. She's dangerous when cornered. And if she's sending fake sheriff orders, that means she's planning something big. I nodded. If she wants war, I'll play her game. By the book. Daniels leaned closer. Just don't play fair. She won't. When I left the station, the wind felt different. Heavy. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from an unknown number and a text. Nice visit to your little sheriff friend. Hope you said goodbye to that mansion. My blood ran cold. I looked up the hill toward my property and saw smoke. Thick. Black rising from the side of my house. Hit the gas so hard my tires screeched if she thought I was going to stand by while she destroyed what my family built. She didn't know who she was dealing with. I tore down the dirt road, gravel flying behind me as the smoke thickened over the tree line. My heart hammered so loud I could barely hear the engine. When I turned the corner past the lake, I saw it. 3 trucks parked by my front lawn, men hauling out boards and smashing windows. One of them had a blowtorch, and there she was, Karen, standing near the porch, arms crossed, smirking like she was filming her own victory. I slammed the brakes, jumped out and shouted, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She turned, sunglasses glinting in the sunlight. You missed the deadline. The HOA voted for demolition. I walked straight toward her, not breaking eye contact. You don't have an HOA, Karen, you have a scam. She laughed, but her voice shook just slightly. Oh, I have authority, and the county's backing me. I pulled out my phone and hit play on the recording of Sheriff Daniels. His voice came through loud and clear. That's not my signature. She's running a scam. Karen froze. The workers paused too, looking between us. Turn that off, she snapped. Keep going, boys, one of her men said, trying to look brave. But I noticed his hands trembling. I raised my voice. Anyone who touches my property from this point is part of a federal crime. Fraud, impersonation, and arson. You'll go down with her. That did it. The man with the torch dropped it. Another backed toward his truck. Karen's face twisted in anger. You think you're smarter than me? You think your little house means anything? I took another step closer. This house has stood for 100 years. It'll still be here long after people forget your name. For a second, she just glared. Then she did something I didn't expect. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and called someone. It's time, she said. Do it, I frowned. Do what? But then, in the distance, I heard the sound of heavy machinery. A bulldozer's engine roaring down the back road behind the property. She smiled coldly. You can record all you want, but by the time you prove anything, this place will be rubble. That's when my drone camera buzzed overhead, recording everything. I turned my screen toward her, showing the live feed. Smile, I said quietly. You're live, county server, sheriff's backup storage, and my lawyer's cloud drive. For the first time, she looked scared. The bulldozer stopped. The driver climbed down, confused. Ma'am, that's not county order. I just got a call from dispatch, said to stand down. Karen's mouth opened, then shut again. I could see the panic start to set in, because the sheriff wasn't just watching. He was already on his way. By the time the sirens echoed through the valley, Karen was pacing near her SUV, muttering under her breath. The workers had scattered like frightened birds, trucks rumbling away one by one. I stayed by the porch, phone still recording, heart pounding as Sheriff Daniels' cruiser pulled up the driveway. He stepped out, hand resting on his belt. Ma'am, he said calmly, you want to explain why my department's signature is on fake demolition orders? Karen straightened her blazer, suddenly full of confidence again. Sheriff, I was simply enforcing community regulations. This man owes decades of HOA dues. Everything was filed legally. Daniels held up the envelope. Funny, because this letter says otherwise. And this seal? He turned it in his hand. Printed from a home computer. We traced the ink to your office printer. Karen's face tightened. That's absurd. My attorney will... Already spoken to him, Daniels interrupted. He quit representing you this morning. Apparently he found out half your HOA board doesn't exist. I couldn't help the small smile forming. Karen turned to me, desperate now.
You set me up.
You and your little sheriff buddy? I stepped forward slowly. No, Karen, you set yourself up. You tried to steal something that never belonged to you. Daniels took a step closer. We've got your emails too, between you and a developer out of state. You were promised a commission for every house you could seize under your fake HOA. This wasn't about dues. This was about flipping land. Karen's mouth fell open. You can't prove that. Daniels nodded toward his radio. We already did. She backed away, shaking her head. You think you've won? You don't know who I work for. That's when another voice cut through the air. We do. A black SUV rolled up behind the sheriff's car. 2 men in suits stepped out. Badges flashing, State Property Crime Division. Karen's eyes went wide. The taller agent said, Ms. Karen Holloway, you are under arrest for fraud, forgery, impersonation of government authority, and attempted property seizure. She screamed as they cuffed her. This isn't over. That land should have been mine. Daniels looked at me. You okay, brother? I nodded slowly, watching as they loaded her into the SUV. Yeah, but something tells me she wasn't working alone. Daniels frowned. You might be right. This whole thing's bigger than one Karen. And as the sirens faded down the road, I glanced back at the old mansion. The smoke had cleared, the porch still standing strong under the morning sun. But then I noticed something nailed to the front gate. A fresh envelope sealed with a different logo. Not HOA. It read, Federal Property Development Group. And underneath, a line that sent a chill down my spine. Acquisition pending. Phase 2 begins Monday. The next morning I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, staring at that new envelope like it was a bomb. The air felt too still, like even the wind was waiting for me to open it. Finally, I tore it open. Inside was a typed letter. Clean, professional, no threats, no typos. This property falls under the Federal Property Development Act, Revision 2019. You're required to vacate within 72 hours for redevelopment and environmental compliance testing. At the bottom was a signature, not Karen's. Senator Graham Caldwell. I felt my stomach drop. That name wasn't just political noise, it was the same senator who'd been pushing for the lakefront modernization bill. Everyone knew it was a land grab, disguised as development, and now it had my address on it. Before I could even think, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Karen was a distraction. Walk away before you end up like her. I jumped up and went straight to the security feed. A black SUV had passed my gate at 3 a.m. The same logo from the letter was printed on the door. This wasn't over. This was the next level. I called Daniels. You sitting down? I asked. He groaned. Please tell me this isn't about another envelope. It's bigger, I said. Federal seals. Senator's name. They're claiming my land's part of a redevelopment project. There was a long pause. Then Daniels said quietly, That's impossible. The bill's been frozen for 2 years. No permits, no budget. Then someone's reviving it and using my property to start. Daniels exhaled hard. All right, don't panic. I'll call a friend at the state office. Just stay put and don't talk to anyone. But I didn't stay put. I drove into town, straight to the county archives. The clerk, a nervous young guy, recognized me immediately. You're the one from the lake, right? We, got told not to share property files with you. By who? I asked. He looked around, then whispered, Some woman named Caldwell. She came in yesterday, said she represents federal interests. I leaned over the counter. What did she take? He hesitated. Old deeds. The original ownership papers from 1924. Said they needed verification. My jaw clenched. She took my family's land documents? He nodded weakly. I turned to leave, but just before the door shut behind me, he added, Sir, she wasn't alone. Karen was with her. I stopped cold. Karen? She's in custody. He swallowed hard. Not anymore. The world tilted for a moment. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Round 2 starts tonight, and this time there was a photo attached. Karen, standing in front of my mansion, smiling. By nightfall, the sky had turned a deep violet, the kind that made the lake look like glass. I parked a mile away and approached the mansion through the woods, drone hovering silently above me. My cameras were all still active, every corner of the property covered. And there she was, Karen, standing at the front steps like she owned the place. Again. Only this time she wasn't alone. 3 men in black suits flanked her, earpieces glowing faintly. Their SUVs lined the driveway. I crouched low, zooming in with my drone. One of the men handed her a folder, and I caught a glimpse of the seal. Federal Property Development Group. The same name on the envelope. Karen flipped through the pages and smiled coldly. He's stubborn, but once this house is condemned, he'll have no choice. The man beside her said, Senator Caldwell wants results. You were supposed to handle this quietly, Karen scoffed. I did until your people got involved. Don't forget, this scam worked fine until your senator started sniffing around. That's when I realized they weren't partners anymore. They were turning on each other. I tapped my earpiece and whispered, Daniels, you seeing this? His voice crackled softly through the line. Yeah, got you on live feed. Keep her talking. We're en route. I stepped out from the trees, hands raised slightly. Evening, Karen. Thought you were in custody. She spun around, startled, but tried to cover it with a smirk. You just don't know when to quit, do you? Not when someone's stealing from my family, I said, walking closer. Tell me, how much did the senator pay you to sell my land? The men in suits shifted uneasily. One whispered something into his earpiece, but Karen snapped at him. Don't you dare call him. This is my deal. You sure about that? I said. Because your little operation's been live streaming for the last 10 minutes. Sheriff Daniels, FBI Cybercrime Division, they're all watching. One of the agents stepped back instantly. She said this was authorized. Karen's mask finally cracked. No, he's bluffing. That's when headlights flashed behind her. 3 police cruisers blocking the driveway. Daniels got out, bullhorn in hand. Karen Holloway! Step away from the property. Karen's face twisted in pure rage. You think you've beaten me? She screamed. You can't stop what's coming. Caldwell owns half this county. He'll bury you in court. I took a step closer. Maybe, but tonight he's the one under investigation. Her eyes widened. What? I turned my phone screen toward her. An email opened, time-stamped 30 minutes ago. Your senator's assistant just flipped. All the emails, payments, and fake contracts are now public. Daniels shouted, hands where we can see them. Karen spun toward her car, desperate. But the agents beside her didn't move to help. They just stood there, cold and silent, as Daniels's men closed in. I watched her drop to her knees, screaming as the cuffs clicked around her wrists again. This time, there was no act, no smirk, just fear. And for the first time, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Daniels walked over, clapped a hand on my shoulder. You did good. But this isn't over yet. The senator's next. I looked past him toward the mansion. Windows cracked, smoke stains on the porch, but still standing proud. Then let's finish it, I said. For my family, and for everyone she scammed. The morning after Karen's arrest, the lake was quiet again. Mist rolled off the water as the first sunlight touched the old mansion's roof. For the first time in weeks, it actually looked peaceful. But peace never lasts long when powerful people get cornered. By noon, every news channel in the state was running the same headline. Senator Caldwell under investigation for land seizure fraud. Leaked documents. Wire transfers, fake environmental claims, it was all out. Karen's emails had connected every thread. The Federal Property Development Group wasn't government at all. It was a shell company Caldwell used to seize private land and flip it to investors. He'd picked the wrong family's land to try it on. Sheriff Daniels showed up later that day, a grin under his hat. You just made half this county free, brother, he said, handing me a signed document. Court verified your deed. This mansion and every inch of that land, it's officially yours again. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Guess that's the end of it. Daniels shook his head. No, that's the start of it. People around here saw what you did. They're not going to bow to fake power anymore. I nodded, staring out toward the lake. The reflection of the mansion rippled across the surface, golden in the afternoon light. Behind me, a few neighbors had gathered, people who'd been harassed by Karen's HOA, people who'd almost lost everything. One old man tipped his cap. "You fought for all of us," he said quietly. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled. I wasn't fighting for glory, just fighting for what's right. Then Daniels looked at me, half smirking. "You ever think about running for county commissioner? You already got more guts than half of them." I chuckled. "No thanks. I'll stick to restoring houses. Buildings don't lie." He laughed, got back in his cruiser, and drove off. I walked up the porch steps, the old brass family plate gleaming again under the sun. My grandfather's name was still carved deep into it, proof that truth doesn't die just because someone fakes paperwork. As I brushed the dust off the engraving, my phone buzzed one last time. An email from the county clerk. All fraudulent HOA entities dissolved. All seized lands reinstated. Case closed. I leaned against the porch railing, breathing in the quiet. The mansion creaked in the wind, almost like it was saying thank you. And in that moment, I finally felt it. Peace. Because I hadn't just saved a house. I'd saved a legacy. "I didn't fight for this country," I whispered, "just to be told I can't live on my own land." The flag on the porch fluttered as if it heard me, and for the first time in a century, the old mansion stood free again.